so simple.
Yeah, it was.
Was it? Is it simple or is it hard work?
No, I mean, for me, it's the way to do it is very simple. It's just to approach people with the deep, sincere belief and trust that no matter what they have done to other people, they still want peace more than anything else.
Mm.
And and to do that without having any judgments about them as a person, but with a sincere, compassionate curiosity to understand them in their life. And so that's basically very simple. It just have taken me many, many years, and it's still an ongoing effort for me to be in that space, because I am constantly confronted with my own judgments about myself and other people around me. Yeah, but the more I talk with people that have done these horrible things to other people, the more I realize that what they really want to do, and the more I trust that what they really want to do is actually peace. And then it just becomes even perhaps sometimes a technical question. How can we enable them very concretely to live out another life energy than violence? So I think that the basic mechanics of this is very easy. It's just really difficult for myself at least, to keep my heart pure and clean and free of judgments and criticism, both toward myself and other people. And that's where the trouble lies. This is the difficulty for me, and not so much the technique, but just to keep my own spirit, my
Mm.
own mental, spiritual, human hygiene, so to say, to keep myself clean. That is,
Yeah.
for me at least. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it sounds so easy, but it takes that one person who are really passionate about that approach, and I'm all curious about it, like and I'm very excited about you being in Bali, and hopefully sharing that, and showing as a model. Because I mean, I'm still struggling. I don't know what to do. Like when that and then my other question, or what I'm curious about, is also that how does that really look? Like with the police, working with the police. You're still working with the police in Denmark, right?
Not
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh, not anymore. Okay. So what do you do
Because
when you're
basically
in the?
I moved to Ukraine, and I've been working full time in Ukraine for the last 4 years. So I grew out of the work in the police. I got a little bit bored, and I was looking for challenge.
Mm-hmm. And what do you
And
do in Ukraine?
I want to. There's a question here about the last 2% here in the chat, and I want to address that.
Okay, all right.
Because yes, I say that, and I mean it's rough numbers, but I say that this methodology of compassionate, empathic understanding, this way of trying to solve conflicts through dialogue, based on mutual empathic understanding, that works for, in my experience, for 98% of people I meet. And the last 2% is what I would probably believe is psychopaths. And those last 2%, they don't respond to empathy. They don't, they are not connected with that idea that their life will be more beautiful by contributing to the well-being of other people. They just don't have it. And in all restorative work, all work of reconciliation, it's absolutely poisonous to have someone who doesn't have that inbuilt capacity for compassion and empathy. It poisons the whole process. And and of course, criminals, they have a higher percentage of this than most other people. Uh, so the thing is, for me, in relation to psychopaths, is that those last 2%, this is where dialogue doesn't work. What we can do is that we can have a bargain where we can, because they are very good at cost benefit analysis, of analyzing what outcome will they profit the most from. This is their question that they're constantly asking themselves. And so we can go into a kind of bargaining process with them, and we can raise the consequences and say, if you do this and that, then it would lead to you suffering more than if you do this and that. And they understand that kind of communication. But if we communicate with non-psychopaths, with ordinary people like that, it will also totally destroy the conversation. So those last 2%, they are really tricky, because we don't really know we don't know when we are talking with a psychopath, and when it takes a long time to figure out. So I hope that addresses this with the last 2%.
Wow.
Please.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for asking that question, Lucy. I was thinking, okay, 2%, but I was not really thinking. And now it revealed something so important about the psychopath. Yes. And actually, I would say, Carl, there are quite a bit more psychopaths than 2%.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, because there's some people just like you cannot get through.
Yeah.
Like and they think very differently, and they just like this totally disconnection. And so I said, wow, I wonder if this person is a psychopath. Now that you brought that up, and thank you for saying that cost and benefit approach. I think sometimes we just give up. I probably would have given up, but now that you brought that, I said, oh, okay. So for people who are hard to talk with, that just cannot get through to, then that might be a way in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that just to continue here, based on the chat here, that that in my experience, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't give people a test that will measure whether or not they're a psychopath. What I do to figure out, for an example, in a case of domestic violence, that this is how I started working. I've done quite a lot of cases with domestic violence, bringing the man and the woman together. 10% of the time it was the woman who did the violence, and 90% of the time it was the man. And before bringing the parties together for a meeting, for the reconciliation meeting, I spend a lot of time preparing for that. I go to each party individually and I talk with them. And I spend a long time to understand how does it look like from their perspective. And what I have found is that if one of the parties do not have the capacity or do not show any signs of remorse or any signs of sincere curiosity to understand the perspective of the other person, then that will not lead to the outcome that we are looking for. And sometimes many men that have been beating their wives, initially they fully sound like a psychopath. They don't have any remorse. They will say it's all her fault. If she didn't do this and that, I would never have hit her. It's her fault. Carl, you will have done the same. And then I know this is how everyone starts. They are justifying their violence, and I know that I need to come back to this. And the more I listen to them with sincere curiosity, without any judgments, and just really try to see from their perspective, the more most of them, they soften up and they start to reveal stories of their own pain and suffering in life, which is where the violence grows from. But the thing is, with what I would call psychopaths, they don't go down that road. They don't come to that story of their own emotional suffering that led to the violence. They don't do it. They don't have that talk in that. And that is how I personally make the assessment and how I measure. And I would say it's very few people. But I would say that is at any given point, 30% of people around us are not capable of listening to the other side in the conflicts. So that is a big part of my work. It is to engage with them and meet them with so much love and care and empathy, and totally be in their perspective, that those 30%, they soften up and they, through their conversations with me, develop the capacity to hear the other side with empathy. And then there is those few people that just never, they just don't access that space. They're not interested in that. So
Yeah.
this is how I am personally is assessing whether or not a person is ready for a reconciliation meeting. So I hope that provided a little more clarity to this very, very tricky question, which is
Hmm.
very
Yeah,
tricky.
great question. Really great question. So, Lucy, how is it for you? And anyone else who would like to have any question? So now in the okay, so you work in prisons. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
there is certainly a much higher percentage of psychopaths in prison, no doubt about it. Yeah.
hmm, hmm. So and how does like I mean prison restore them? I mean if they're already psychopaths, nothing can get through, and then they just is this more like a containment? They just being contained so that they don't do more criminal stuff.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't work in prisons. I have worked a lot with criminals, and I still do. But prisoners, I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure, from what I see in my experience, that the the big majority of those prisoners that are seemingly not capable of having empathy for other people, I think the big majority of them, they themselves call for a lot of emotional healing from their experiences of violence from their childhood before they have that capacity to hear other people. And I distinguish that from psychopaths. It's not the same thing. Question is that it's so hard to figure out. We never know when we sit and talk with a person. Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for that work in prison.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes, I agree that we don't come to the end of empathy. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So just one final comment on this that I think is very important. It is that somehow I was never taught this when I became a certified trainer. But what I realized from the work I do is that I must acknowledge the fact that I cannot solve all issues around me, all issues of conflict, through dialogue and through building mutual empathy. And in those cases, I need to apply what Marshall calls the protective use of force. So
What?
I
Sorry?
consider the protective use of force.
Oh,
It
protective
is
use of force.
when we use force to with the minimal amount of force to provide the maximum safety for people around us, which is the opposite of punitive use of force, where we hurt people intentionally as in revenge for what they have done in the past. And I found that if we really, really want to engage into very deep rooted or any kind of conflict basically in life, we need to be very, very distinct on when are we going down the track of using dialogue as a tool to build peace and cooperation, and when are we switching into using protective use of force. And a big part of my work and what I train people in is how to make that shift from empathic listening, honest self-expression, dialogue, and that shift into now I'm stepping into the sphere of using protective use of force. Uh, and I see around me a lot of the NVC people I know with children, people, just ordinary people, that they can reach so and so far with NVC, and then when their empathic listening and honest self-expression doesn't do anymore, then they fall into jackal actions of hurt and harm and revenge. And that is where I really want us to practice the protective use of force. So we still, with a inner compassion and care for the other human being, we still use force to prevent them from doing harm to other people, uh, but without the energy of revenge. And I see this is really important for all of us, no matter who we engage with our partner, with our children, colleagues. Uh, we really need to be trained and skillful in the protective use of force. So that would be my and in relation to people that doesn't have empathy for other people, this is what we are left doing, the protective use of force. So that was my final comment to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other
I'm curious.
questions?
see. I'm curious to see how that looks like, and I guess you would probably be having a session on that, like that transition, or even just like
Yes,
listening empathically, the way you do that, because like I mean, it's something to just throw that term around and practice it with people around us, but when you actually doing that with people who are already like in yeah in the midst of violence, it would be a different level of listening.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
that is going to be a session. Absolutely, perhaps two sessions, depending on the request from
Mhm.
people.
Yeah. And now, you have a website called the Peace Engineer. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
What does that allude to? I mean, how do you see yourself as a peace engineer? Because you like you said, you had a background in the, was it civil engineer? No. What did you study, or what was your background before?
Well, I've studied several things, but I worked 10 years in the film business,
Oh, film. Yeah. Hmm.
which is very different from everything we're doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about this idea of peace engineer.
Yeah, so the concept of peace engineering, that is, I think I will post a link here also. Um,
Hmm.
so peace engineering is that is our organizational response to seeing all the violence taking place in Ukraine. Ukraine is in a proxy war with Russia. Russia have occupied a part of Ukraine called Crimea and are supporting non-governmental armed groups in their rebellion in East Ukraine. And in general, in the Ukrainian society, people are fighting each other. There is no culture of dialogue. There's no culture of round table discussions to figure out what are we going to do together. And and we decided that we wanted to change this. We wanted to increase Ukrainian capacity and to educate people to step into any type of violent conflicts and support a more peaceful outcome. And uh, and so we established the Peace Engineer School, which is a 1 year full-time program where people get 75 days of training and they get a lot of mentorship and support to go out and work with conflicts in their local community. And then we finish the 1 year program with a 4 day long exam. People are provided a scholarship through this 1 year so they can be financially sustainable. So quite a comprehensive program, which was funded by the German Office of Foreign Affairs. Um, and the concept of peace engineering is that we have all heard about mediation. We have all heard about dialogue facilitation, negotiation, trauma healing, collective decision making processes. And in the Peace Engineer program, we try to put everything together. Uh, and we teach people in all these methodologies because when we approach a conflict, we never know exactly what it takes to resolve it. We know that empathic listening will be at the core of what we do, no matter what we do. But we don't know if it calls for dialogue facilitation, mediation, negotiation, trauma healing. Often it's some kind of unique combination of all of these elements that is required in order to resolve a conflict peacefully. And then, of course, the protective force. So, in the Peace Engineer program, we train people in these methodologies so they have a large available toolbox to approach any type of violent conflict and support a more peaceful outcome. So, much more than just mediation. Only a few conflicts are suitable for mediation. Most conflicts are actually not ready for mediation or have passed beyond the point of mediation. And then we need to apply something else. And that is that's the basic concept of the Peace Engineer School, to give our participants that full package, that full toolbox.
Wow. And so people can get scholarship to do that for the whole year.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A 1 year full-time program. It doesn't leave any space for people to have a work on the side. So we just acknowledge that if we want to have people's attention for full time 1 year, then they need a scholarship.
Yeah. And
It
how
is
do
awesome.
sorry, what did you say?
I say that it is an awesome program. I am really, really happy with this. And when I started learning all of this, I would have been so excited to to be in the program myself. So I tried together with my colleagues to create a program, this peace engineer program, from our wildest dream. How would we love to do it if we had all the money in the world? How would we educate people? And that's what we did. And we were very grateful for the Germans to finance it.
Hmm. And can
Yeah,
anybody
apart from Germany.
apply for
Yeah.
that, Carl? I mean, it sounds very interesting. I mean, I'm curious. I'm interested. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a dream because certainly much more places than just Ukraine, people are faced with an enormous amount of violent conflicts, and I would love to help people other places in the world in establishing similar programs in their home countries to
Yeah.
address whatever conflicts they have. And I can say that in this European context, Germany is playing a lead role in supporting dialogue in Europe. There's a lot of tensions with Russia, America on one side pulling European Union and NATO towards hostility towards Russia, and Germany is absolutely playing a lead role in constantly encouraged to dialogue and taking initiatives for peace. And I'm not really aware of anyone else who's so eager to do that than the Germans, actually. But I wish that all big countries, any country in the world, would invest just 1%, 100%. If they have made 100% in their armed forces, security forces, if they would just invest 1% in building capacity for peace engineering, then the world would look rapidly different, and that would be my lifelong mission to promote that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
I
hope
think
that this answers your
every
question. Yes.
country such has such huge budget for war, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they could just easily divert that a little bit to prevent war and or to resolve war instead of uh, yeah, buying more um, arms.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It would be
And
wonderful.
if you already have a model, then yeah, I imagine you know you could build one that kind of school and train people to be to teach or like something like that. And in third world countries, the cost would be less, I would imagine.
Probably
The
yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely, I would love to do that. I just don't know who to do it together with and how to finance it. But certainly,
Mm, yeah. Yeah. So, is that what you're doing in Ukraine? What else do you do other than this peace engineering school?
yeah. Right now, I don't do else than that. The last couple of months here have been kind of quiet. We are waiting for the next new arrival of funding to continue our program, and so the last couple of months I've just enjoyed life, being with my daughters, petting the cat, being with my girlfriend. So before, because it's so intense work to do this, and it's very very emotional, demanding
Uh-huh.
uh, to be part of that group that trains the peace engineers. So I'm just really I'm not doing much else. I'm spending a lot of time to read, to improve my skills. And I can say that what I'm growing more and more fond of, and now I'm sitting and trying to write a small booklet about negotiation,
Ah,
because I see that every one of us, every single day, we negotiate with someone to find
Yeah.
agreement, to find a way to coexist, to work together, to live together, to build peace together. And mediation is really good, but a mediator is a neutral third party that supports two other people to come together for dialogue. And I see that I need negotiation skills much more than I need mediation skills.
Ah,
And
yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that. And that's very interesting because I
yes,
think sometimes in NVC people put so much stock in the mediation and not so much in negotiation.
yeah, and that is really where I see that that negotiation, that is when I am part of the conflict and I am using skills, very particular skills, of course, based on nonviolent communication, to help resolve the conflict I am part of myself, and to help and facilitate the process of both of us reaching an agreement that we are both happy with. Uh, so negotiation is really something that I'm very excited about, and I am building a larger and larger experience in applying negotiation in all kind of crazy situations, and I'm really really excited about it, and for me that is at the core, at the essence of what I plan to bring to the IIT, is to train people in negotiation. And
Mm,
I think it's also written somewhere that I am a certified hostage and crisis negotiator from the American police. And that, I mean, clearly they have read Marshall's book, those who developed that training in the US, because it's so heavily focused on needs and separating needs from strategies and empathic listening, and it just goes so hand in hand with NVC, and it's
mm,
just such a powerful experience to understand. Now I'm in conflicts with my wife, with my child, with my colleague, with someone else on the street, and I take a few moments of breath, and then
mm.
I come into a safe place of reassurance that we are going to work this out. At the end, maybe in an hour, maybe in 15 minutes, maybe in 3 days, we will have established peace with each other again. So I'm very excited about the negotiation. That
Yeah.
resource, Lucinda, that you were talking about, what resource could that be? Is that me mentioning hostage and crisis negotiation? Yes, they use what resource? Yeah, I was trained in hostage and crisis negotiation, and that was a training, and I have read some books about it, and basically the police, they are very much using empathic listening and everything we know from NVC. They use it as a core element in their work to negotiate a peaceful settlement of a hostage situation. So I hope this answered your question. Okay, very good. So anyone else with any questions? How can I serve you? What can I tell about? Or what can you tell me about? Anyone?
I have
So
a question. If nobody has a question, I have a question.
yes,
My question is, when you talk about like this negotiation skill, a thought came to my mind about like, do you have to have trust? You have to have faith in that process, or it just comes naturally to negotiate? Is negotiation something that we just do very naturally and it develops from that? Negotiation the NVC way?
I'm not sure I follow your question. Could you elaborate a little more?
Yes, when you were talking about, like I mean, I can't remember the word you used. Were you saying that you're in conflict with your wife, with your children? There's always we're always in some kind of yeah, maybe little conflict. It could be just something that seems very normal, everyday
Yeah,
family fights, and then you mentioned about using that negotiation and skills, right?
yeah.
And somehow there's a thought that just came to mind. do we even have to think about negotiating, or it's already very natural being part of that conversation? Or do we have to have faith that by negotiation, like you said, that things will get resolved, will become resolved in some time, like in minutes or something like that? So that's what I was curious about, the faith, like, I mean, does that build faith that, okay, no matter what conflict I'm in, it will always be resolvable?
Yes.
You have that faith. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think so. I can say that for me in my life, I was in my childhood, I was taught to fight. I
Uh-huh.
really not physically fight, but not necessarily only physical at least. But I was taught that there is not enough resources, and I need to fight to get what I need and what I want. And fighting means that I walk out on top as a winner, and whoever I confronted needed to be the loser in order for me to get what I want. So that is how I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and that is still very very deeply ingrained in me.
Yes.
And all the disasters I have produced in my life, they come from this way of thinking. And for me, with NVC and negotiation, it comes more and more natural for me. But there's still a point where I need to flip a switch inside my head, where I go from just being my normal relaxed me, which is more empathic and compassionate and easygoing, but still can trigger and become really angry. Uh, and then to consciously flip that switch and say, okay, now I'm stepping into the sphere of NVC based negotiation to address this issue. And I need to do my own work of self empathy to figure out what's really going on for me, and to exactly and to pause my interaction with the other person until I have found trust and faith that I can come back with empathic listening to that person. And then, as I practice this more and more over the years, I have more and more trust that we will work it out. Because I look back in the past and I see, wow, we solved that thing, we solved this, we had this issue, we had so many issues, and we worked it out. We sat down, we talked, I listened to all the pain and sadness in myself, in the other person, and we cleared the space for a pure, clean energy to build our cooperation on. So the more that I have these experiences that it works, the more faithful I am that when I step into the next conflict in front of me, I will also be able to work that out. So, but there is a lot of steps where you're taking one little step and you're kind of, oh, will it work? Will it work? And it's kind of very insecure and feeling a little scared and nervous, taking these first baby steps. But then as we grow up and we get more uncomfortable walking, then in the end we can run marathons as humans. But that's hard to imagine when you see your child taking the first step, that one day that little child will be able to run a marathon. So I see the same with negotiation and with NVC and peacemaking in general. We just need to build our trust on our previous experiences of success. So, and learn from our mistakes, because we do mistakes not all the time, but very, very often, and they are such a rich source for learning. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I
Yeah.
want to say something about that also, about the mistakes that that's something that I really, really try to embrace in my practice, both in my personal life and professional life when I'm in conflict with someone. That I tend to have this idea and tell myself this story, that the reason why we don't have peace, why we ended up in an argument, why we ended up in some kind of destructive conflicts, that's because of the other person. It's because of her. If she wasn't so mean and so not responding to empathy, then everything will be much better. and I see that every single time that I have blamed the other person for being responsible for the situation, I have disempowered myself to bring the process to the next step needed for peace. So it's really the biggest difficulty for me is to look into myself and take responsibility for my own, for my capability, for my limits. And I see that the more I can stretch that and the more I can develop, the more I can help resolve the situation for around me. So blaming other people for things not working out, that is just really only disempowering us. So the big thing here is to take on our own responsibility. We can do so many things to improve the situation, no matter where we are and who we're with. Yeah, just
Yeah.
really want.
Yes, and I think that is so important, and I think the the majority, like we see around us, people go to blame before they go to responsibility, and the way you're explaining it, it's something that it's like a skill also, to take and I think it's more than the skill, but it's also the willingness or the desire to take that, to be aware of that, and then take that responsibility. Okay, let's look inside first, before blaming. And I can see that, like if you practice that, it becomes so natural, and it probably feels uncomfortable now for you to go into blame. I mean, you probably cannot do it anymore because you've always looked at that, and you see how much more beneficial, how much more wonderful if you actually take responsibility and work things through, and things are, you come to peace with you, and you also come to peace with others. What do you say?
Yeah, I think that's a very ideal scenario. I have simultaneously with learning NVC and becoming better and better in this, I have grown a bigger and bigger pain inside myself from
Ah,
all the many ongoing situations where I'm not really uh, where I could not take that responsibility, although I know that my that I am the limitation here. I know that, but it's just such a heavy burden to take that responsibility, and I take the easy way out and I blame the other person. So that still happens for me, and God knows my children and ex-wife and current wife and mother and brothers and sisters, they all know that I have that alive in me. So I really want to, and it's a pain for me to see it, and at the same time I have certainly become much better at handling it. So for me, this is a journey, and I'm constantly looking into myself and confronting myself with this, and kind of dealing with that pain of acknowledging, okay, in this situation today, I was not capable of doing this. Uh, and that's a big pain for me. And I think that if I look back, started 10 years ago learning NVC, I probably become a 12% better person. But yeah, 12, that feels good. Probably around 12%. So I'm
mm,
just increasing, expanding the number of times that I can produce a good interaction with other people. I have not transformed into some kind of miracle. I am still struggling. Uh, and on one side, I have that very strong experience of empowerment from having these experiences and see how it works. And on the other side, I'm really exhausted from just not being able to carry that responsibility sometimes.
mm,
So certainly there is a lot of pain in this
yeah,
also.
yeah.
Yeah. I wish it was so easy that I could just turn that part of me off completely, and I can't.
Yes, yes. Yeah, thank you sharing that. And Lucy was also saying that it's yeah, to be very honest about that, and it's very inspiring, and I see it as a topic for discussion, like further on,
Absolutely.
and maybe when you're in Bali. Yeah, to examine or to delve deeper into this topic of personal responsibility. Yeah, and it's been very, very, very enlightening, and it seems like time just flies. We're already 45 minutes, and actually a little bit more because we started a little bit earlier. And I'm a bit sad to actually to end this, but I think you have something, and I actually have something going on right after this, and so we've come towards the end of our webinar, our interview. But I hope you all will come to Bali and get to know Carl, get to know Mukti and Dorset. And if you haven't known any one of them, they're all amazing trainers with such diversity. So it's going to be a very rich and very complete an IIT, in my opinion. Yeah. Anything else? Please contact us, and I guess if you already registered, so you have my contact, and that's from me, and from you, Carl. Anything you would like to give people for a takeaway, to either reflect or something that they could already use from this, yeah, for well, until the IIT, or just to immediately practice. Just something simple, something easy to do that could change their life.
Yeah, one little thing. Very often, when we end up doing destructive things, saying destructive things in a conflict, if we could just take a 6.5 minute time out for ourselves before saying anything, and just spend a little more time figuring out what's going on for ourselves and what may be going on for the other person, just for 6.5 minutes, then we will move things a little bit towards a more peaceful outcome. So that just that time out to reconnect with the purpose of why we are here, and what we really want to achieve before we say anything in rage and anger and despair. That is really that choice is something that's a choice all of us can do at any day, and that is the most important choice in front of us, no matter how many years we have been working with this. So take a time out to listen to ourselves, figure out what's going on for myself, and also give a little moment to try and figure out in silence what is going on for the other person. Yeah, so
that sounds very simple, but I think it's very doable. I like that. 6.5 minutes, you say.
6.5 minutes.
Not less or no more. Yeah. So beautiful. I mean, I'm going to take that to heart and practice it right away, and I hope the others can use that. And somebody mentioned here, yeah, Lucy, I see everybody's comments here, and I think Carol also. Do you have any more questions before we end this? And I would also like to say to Carl, thank you for making the time. I know you're very, very busy, and it's just wonderful to just sit with you and listen to all this, and you're very passionate about it. And I just can't wait to meet you in person and yeah, sit in your class and learn from you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any unanswered questions or anything, then please find me on Facebook or my email or something. I will be very happy to, if you walk away with something unanswered in relation to this call, I will be very happy to write to you. So I just want to write my email here. So
yes, that would be great. That would be great. So you type in your email. Okay. Yes. All right. So thank you all. Thank you, Lucy, Sonia, Karen, Fitria. Oh, Fitria also came in, and then Shumei for joining us. There are a few that came but they had to leave earlier. Thank you so much for joining, and you will receive the replay soon, and then you can share it. And I'm going to put all of that in the website and also in Facebook. So thank you again all. Thank you, Carl, and speak to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.